Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for watching Lockdown with Thought Leaders. My name is Bryan Shue, and I'm with Full Moon Digital. And today I have the pleasure of welcoming Bruce Thompson to the show. So, Bruce, I want to welcome you. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate that. And I want to give you a chance to kind of introduce yourself to the audience today.
All right. Well, first, thank you for allowing me to be on today. My name is Bruce Thompson. I am a Marine veteran, retired as a Master Sergeant after 23 years of service, and that was 4 years ago now. It's hard to believe it's been 4 years. Uh, but since then, I've done that usual transition. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I got out. I took a job for money because isn't that what we're supposed to do? And I realized that that was probably the worst decision I had is I took a job for money. I had no passion. I didn't enjoy it. It made me miserable. I left after 4 weeks. And I had people tell me I was crazy because I left a six-figure job after 4 weeks. And I'm like, I just didn't like the person I'd become, having to do that and work. And I quickly found out that my why was family. It wasn't money. It wasn't, you know, uh, the job title. It wasn't, I'm in charge of things. It led me down the road of who was I really and what was it going to, fill my emotional basket and recharge me. So you go back to what you know best, and I worked in the military in transition. I took over as a Department of Labor Employment Workshop Facilitator, taught all over Southern California, and I moved to Jacksonville, Florida. So I got to run around the Southeast. I think I hit four four different states and multiple in each of them. It, and then after a while, it was so much nonprofit, working in the military veteran community here in Northeast Florida, um, that I stopped doing the facilitator role because I I could do much more um, without being on that schedule and restricted to some of the curriculum that needs to be updated quite a bit. So that's where I'm here. I work with hired military as an ambassador, helping promote their programs. I'm associated with a lot of different groups, and it's all kind of going back to help the military, the transitioning service members, the veterans, and their families. Especially with the spouses that finding employment for them is hard because people look and see that they every couple of years they're moving and it's something different. So I've gone back. I focused on that one. So I guess the traditional I'm a veteran advocate is what's at play here. Uh, but there's a lot of different components as to what makes a veteran advocate and what I actually come out and do on a regular basis.
Now, you mentioned in your intro about taking a job for money, and that's a big conversation point, not just in the veteran community, but also civilian community as well. And people talk about, well, I need a job, I need a job, I need a job, I need something to pay my bills. Well, can you tell me about that whole experience of taking a job for money versus taking a job for passion or taking a job that resonates with your why?
Right. Well, I had this wonderful transition plan. It was going to be great. And then, I started being open and honest with my doctors. So I had a ceremony. I took 30 days to kind of uh, go out and check out a few different areas where we were considering relocating to. Well, I came off those 30 days and I checked into the hospital to have surgery. So that knocked me out for about 45 days, where I was supposed to be on terminal and being able to double dip and get my full military while I was getting paid. But instead, I was in full recovery and going to doctor's appointments constantly. So that wonderful plan that I spent like a year and a half working on, just it's gone, you know. And so I didn't have to work. Uh, Finances, uh, my wife's job, everything, it it made it fine for us. But I had a job since I was 18 years old, and It was one of those, it's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to work. So as we started getting a little closer, Lucas Group approached me with a position 8 miles from my house, senior production supervisor. So, a quality level. And, it's 6 figures day one. Why wouldn't you want to do it? And then you get into that, you had the one interview. Oh, well, let's come back to do a second. And once you start doing it, the competitive nature was, hey, I've done all these interviews. Of course I'm going to take this job because I did all the work to get it. And looking back, had I had someone more, had I gotten a mentor and had them really talk with me and explain what was going on, one, I never would even bothered applying for the job, and I definitely wouldn't have accepted it once it got to that end, because it wasn't matching my passion. It wasn't matching what I wanted to do. It was right back into the manufacturing world, which is Groundhog Day every single day. You can make really good money at it. You can be really good at your job. But for me, it was lacking the challenge. It was lacking the other things that was needed. So that's where it happens to go. And I'll tell you, had I been in a pinch where I needed the money, yeah, I would have stayed doing it. But I was an angry, miserable person. It was just, you have that, why am I doing this? And we just don't need to live like that. There's more to life than working and having a paycheck. So you have that balance, and you never really think about work-life balance. We hear about it, but we don't really think about it coming out of the military, because we haven't had that balance. We've been work, little family here and there, and so those are things where we don't know about these things until we actually make our own transition. And I said, now with LinkedIn, and I guess one of the beauties, bright sides of this stay-at-home orders is there's more interviews like this. There's more virtual networking, virtual the webinars, where you can come in and you can get this great advice. It's a positive on a horrible situation, but you can't just sit and watch the news all day. You've got to be able to do something else. And there's different programs that have offered up free training. The DoD Skill Bridge programs majority of them are still running. Higher military. Instead of actually going out on an internship, there's some remote and virtual internships that are made available. So it's still working. There's still companies out there hiring. You just got to figure out what it is you want to do and how do you fit best into that industry. Too many people say, when I get out, I want to be HR. I want to be a project manager. I want to be a program manager. I want to be in logistics, communications. Well, those are industries. Those aren't, specific job titles or where you want to be. I'm in HR. I help with the recruitment. I've done hiring. I do training. So I'm all in the HR process, but I'm not an HR generalist. I don't come near benefits. I don't deal with legal. And so you have to get it down to the actual position that you want to do, not just go out there and say, I can do anything, because there's no job out there for someone who can do anything. And that's something we have to break down, because too many people are coming out there with the, I can do it all. I want to work in this industry, but they think saying this industry actually helps. We got to break those industries down, because logistics, are we talking air, ground, sea? Is it medical supplies, washers and dryers, moving people? What are we talking about? And so you start breaking all that down, and that's what we need to be at. But instead, people are at that 50,000 foot level saying, I just want to work in X industry.
And you brought up a great point, Bruce, about finding that mentor and finding that voice of reason that you can go to and kind of talk to. Kind of talk a little bit about that, because I think that can be a valuable insight for a community to listen to and hear from, because you know they're so interested in finding a job and getting that first paycheck post military, or even if they're in the civilian sector, they've lost their job now and they're now having to focus on how do I get that next job. Well, you brought mentorship, and that's a big key factor, I think, in successfully finding that next role, because then you're not just focused on the job for money. You're focused on a job for passion, that job that matches your why. I think that's a great and interesting conversation point. So let's go into that a little bit.
Right. Well, for those in service, we had a mentor assigned pretty much our entire career. We had that person that when we had an issue or question, we went to that person in our chain. And as we got a little bit senior, instead of relying on that person who was assigned to be your mentor, we would go out and find those that we worked with before, someone that was in a position where we wanted to get to, and so we would search and whether it was over lunch or a coffee or just going by the office and having that talk, it's what helped develop us, helped us grow. Well, it doesn't change because we're leaving the military. What changes is now, instead of having that mentor who's military focused, we have to have someone who's done the transition, because it's hard for someone to tell me how to transition when they've never done it. And I'm guilty of that as well. Everybody in military that was senior enough, we were all taught to help our people transition, but we didn't know how to. So for military, there's a couple great programs. One of them is American Corporate Partners, ACP, and it's a free 1-year one-on-one mentorships with someone who is in the profession that you want to get into. So I did that one. I had a great mentor, senior vice president of human resources and talent development for a large hotel chain, and we went through it, and it really got me from the HR role, being a generalist, to more of, I will not be a generalist because I don't want to deal with legal benefits. I don't think you want the Marine to be out there and doing conflict resolution. We can do it well, but we might get ourselves in a lot more trouble in the way we handle it. So it's adapting to those areas and things that important, and that's where I really worked, and that's great. And then one that I'm just in love with right now is Veterati.com. It's a free website built by vets for vets and military spouses, but you can go on there and find mentors that have similar backgrounds to you, that work in a certain industry that you're interested in. You just saw their profile and something about their description clicked with you. You can go on there, you can click and sign up for a session. A session's a 1-hour phone call. I'll tell you, the people I talk with, we talk about whatever they want to focus on. If they're in that, I'm lost, I don't know anything. Yes, I have a starting point to start getting us rolling. But the most part, people are calling because they have a specific question on this item or that item. And so I'm like, let's dig into it. And I even tell them, hey, I think your best thing is to talk to this other mentor. It's not like you're mine and I'm not going to share knowledge or information. I have some of them, as soon as we start talking, I'm like, oh, I got the perfect mentor for you. And they can talk to me. If we talk, we click. I've had some that I've talked to 5 or 6 times. I've had some where I wasn't the right mentor for them, and we talked once, and I helped them find the right mentor. But there's no commitment. You sign up for a session, you have that session. If you like it and it worked for you, you sign up with that mentor again. If it didn't, you move on. But you can have someone. So I'm in HR. You can talk to me about HR or military transition, uh, LinkedIn or those things that I'm very knowledgeable at. Well, I don't know anything about healthcare other than I have insurance and I'm broken. So VA and let them take care of me. But you can go find someone who's a doctor, a nurse that's been in that healthcare profession, you know, and they're basically going to give you all kinds of knowledge that Bruce has no idea about. And that's what I love is we don't get hung up on it must be me, it must be me. This whole thing that really works great is the fact that majority of us are connectors. Hey, I know this information, I have these resources, I know these individuals, and the best thing we do is we pass them along to those who can do the best good for them. And we talk about veterans helping veterans. It's a true thing. It's just not a slogan that goes around and everybody feels good about it. It's one of those. Honestly, it's amazing to see how great that is. And now that we've gone into this COVID-19 crisis, it's just getting magnified of how many veterans are out there giving back, figuring out ways they can do things. Because I'll tell you, if you're a transitioning service member in search for a job, this is a really weird and tough time because so many people have been laid off. So many businesses have shut down, and the essential crew is there, but they're not really looking to hire. I've got a couple of friends in healthcare. I'm kind of like, hey, I got people that if they're not a nurse, a doctor, working in a specialty, they're not bringing them on, and majority of them aren't really bringing them on as employees, but more as temp workers. So even that healthcare industry where you think it would be open doors and let's go get in the job right now, it's not the case. But there are plenty of organizations and jobs, especially in the logistics and manufacturing. You just have to find the right people to be able to say, yeah, this is what it is, and this is kind of what you'd be doing. Is that something you want to be, doing? And some right now are just jumping on some remote positions. As you said, just have that first paycheck come in. Help with keeping the bills being paid, and be able to set aside and do something other than just kind of go stir crazy looking at four walls. And uh, it's just one of those weird times, but we're gonna get through it. It's going to be one of those that I think once we kind of get back out where the crisis, it's gotten a flattened out effect, we're taking care of it, and we can get back out and start working. And I think the job market is just going to burst with all these opportunities. People laid off went and found other work, and it's one of those ones that I'm excited to see where that is, but we have to wait our turn and get through this crisis first.
Oh no, that's some great points in that. And I'll be honest with you, I'm looking through this whole COVID-19 outbreak, I'm also excited about the opportunities that will be out there once everything kind of returns to normal, because I've found out that we always bounce back, we always get back to normal once everything is said and done. And as you that mentors a lot of transitioning service members and gives a lot of advice on a daily basis, if I was a civilian and I was dealing with job loss and not in, or even if I was a veteran dealing with job loss, what would I do to connect with others during this time besides maybe giving my buddy a call or surfing on the web? What else could I do to connect and network with people?
Well, so the best things we have going on right now is webinars. Last night, Michael Quinn, he does his Mastering LinkedIn, but instead of actually doing that webinar where he's teaching it, he had a 2-hour, Q&A session. It was, what kind of questions do you have? And it was transitioning slash, finding employment in this crisis. I personally, we've got a lot of video networking going on. So it's great. You go out there and see like 20, 25 boxes of people, and Some you know, some you don't, and it it's weird, it's different. But once you've done a couple of them, you're like, okay, this is where we're at. And yes, we'd love to be face to face and shaking hands, but all that's a no-no right now. So you hop on a couple of those. Maybe the first one you just hop on and you listen. You don't participate very much, but it's that slow thing. Whether you're out there on LinkedIn or Facebook or your different social media, it's okay. I went out there and I saw a comment by this individual. Maybe I reach out to connect. I send a message. I saw your article on this. Was wondering if we could uh, chat for a couple of minutes and just reach out. It's if you sit at home and wait, you'll be behind the power curve when employment starts back up. This is the perfect time to go out and find mentors, find individuals that post insightful things, individuals that work at certain companies where they're willing to open up and have their time. Uh, and it, military, veteran, civilian, it's all that same thing. It's all reaching back out. Now, certain companies have their own kind of virtual box for the employees to work into. That's great because right now it's not just going to be the people that you're used to seeing at work. It's going to be people from all over the globe that work for that organization. Right now for the military, you have the 1 year free premium LinkedIn service that you can sign up for, military veteran and their spouses. And you go back out, we have a lot of different SkillBridge partners and other schools that are actually waiving their fees right now. So while we're in this stay at home, we can actually be filling gaps in our skill sets. We could be doing things that make us a better candidate. We can always be learning. And with the LinkedIn Premium, you get access to LinkedIn Learning, which I just don't think enough people take advantage of. And you've
No,
got
you don't.
Psych Armor and Onward to Opportunity still going on. USO Pathfinder still working. Uh, you've got Vets to Industry. I tell you, that group's all over the states. And if you want to find somebody, you can find them real quick on that. You've got the LinkedIn, you got the Veteran Mentor Network. I tell you, be ready for some tough love. But if you post a question, you're going to get a response probably within an hour, if not within 5 minutes. But these are all different ways that you can reach out and join a couple of these groups. Uh, I work with the Mission Continues, Travis Manion Foundation, Team Red, White, and Blue, a little with Team Rubicon, and a bunch of other local nonprofits. And half of that is about continuing the connection and getting that camaraderie that we had in service that we lose when we take off our uniform. Well,
And you brought up a great point, Bruce, about the education, because I think a lot of people forget that point, and not necessarily they forget it, but they just kind of put it off to the side because, oh, I'm so busy, or oh, I can't do that right now. Well, I feel like right now is a great opportunity for you to learn and for you to be educated in a particular skill, in a particular program, or whatever it may be. Education right now can be vital once everything is said and done because you've even said yourself, it's like we're going to be through this and we're going to be back to normal and we're going to start experiencing what the normal was previously. Maybe not the same degree, but we're going to be back to a similar routine to what we were before the lockdown pandemic happened. So I think that's a great point. I hope that people take that opportunity and start educating themselves about the programs that are out there to kind of sharpen their skills or maybe learn a new skill. And speak on that a little bit about the education part because I think that that can be overlooked so much, especially in times like these.
yeah. So whether it's working on a certification, like I said, whether you're just doing LinkedIn Learning and hey, we all work with Excel and Word, but we don't have all those, create a pivot table without really pulling out the book and figuring out how to walk yourself through and do it, doing all the formatting, uh, it, it's something that LinkedIn Learning. I keep going back to them because I'm big on LinkedIn. So you spend most of your time there. You use the opportunities. But to do an intermediate level course and then to go do the advanced course, um, someone who can go into Excel and throw up the formulas, get everything done. There's jobs for people that's all they need to have. Um, I'm not a data analysis, data entry person, so I don't want to live looking at spreadsheets all the time. But there are those that are just amazing at it. Those are opportunities. Um, Microsoft Access. Uh, I will input stuff into it, but I'm not the person who's going to build the database. You can get a beginner, intermediate, advanced. You can do that with all those things. Project management. There's people who's earning not the certification, but a certificate for free right now. You just got to be out there looking for what it is, and the education centers for those on active duty are still helping out. It's different ways to take a CLEP test, go out and maybe enroll in the college that you take one class every 4 to 8 weeks, depending on the school and the schedule you set. But now is the perfect time to be taking advantage of these things. Military spouses, there are scholarships, there are programs out there that will help pay for your college. And I'll tell you, if you don't have the GI Bill, or you're trying to knock out lower levels, so you have GI Bill so you can actually go on and do a master's degree, then FAFSA. Most of us can use FAFSA for a community college. We're getting the same credits we need. We're paying a lot less for it, but that's opportunities. I've got the GI Bill, so let me just go out there and blow through it. You can, but if you have a plan and are strategic about it, you can go all the way up to your master's degree, maybe further, just taking advantage of everything that's out there. And you can go to different programs where you're not getting certified or anything, but you're learning those lessons of what is Lean Six Sigma. I'll tell you, project management for military, most of us have done it, but we don't speak the language. And that's a lot of things. I joke with Lean Six Sigma. You got to go out and do it, and everybody's like, it's the lean language, and I'm like, well, military, we call that continuous process improvement. The difference was we didn't go do the briefs and find champions and all those things that go into the lean process, but we've done the work. So it's starting to train ourselves on this new language, which is civilianese. We've got all our acronyms and everything else, and we get out and we find out that the public-private sector, they've got their own languages and they've got plenty of acronyms themselves. And we hear one, we're like, oh, I know that, and you're like, not even close. Yeah.
Can you get on that a little bit, Bruce? Because I think that's an interesting conversation, because it is such a difference in language between the civilian sector and the military sector, and being able to figure out how do we talk the same way, especially if we're leaving the military to go into civilian sector. How do we figure out that whole language barrier of, I understand this process, but maybe I don't know how to speak about it. I think that's an interesting point that we should talk about. Did you hear me?
Now you froze up.
Oh,
So I
uh-oh.
got you with go back in and talk about how we learn this language
Yeah,
and
talk about
how
the
you go about
language
it.
barrier. Yeah, the language barrier that this military folks tend to have when they're trying to get into the civilian sector, because I think that can be an interesting point to bring up, because so many of us are so, yeah, we know about all these things, but when we go outside, we're like, oh, don't really know about this stuff, and we don't really have the language that the civilian sector has. So how do we get past that? How do we overcome that barrier?
So some of that is, we do some of these webinars. We do some reading. I know it's crazy. There's books. Those of us who don't read, there's books on audio, so we can just download and listen to them. You can still go to libraries. Bases still give you access to their libraries. If you've gone to school, you have access to them. But there are guides that help us learn that. We can do webinars. We can find that mentor that understands that language. So there are so many things available to us. What we have to figure out is what method's going to work best for us. Do I learn by reading? Do I learn by doing? Do I learn by someone telling me about it? And depending on what method that you learn best at, that's where you have to go figure out, is it I need a mentor? Is it I need a book? I need to go into a classroom? And these are the things that we have to do. And when you start just doing some research into the industry, and it's not just into the industry, it's each company will have their own things. That's why we talk, somebody will call it project manager, another company will call it a program manager. If you look at the definitions, these are very different jobs, but different companies will interchange them like they're the same thing. And this is where you have to go beyond a job title and actually read the vacancy announcement to see what is it they're actually looking for. You can't just grab a title and, oh, I know what that is, and run. You actually have to read, and what is it they're actually looking for. Some people spend a lot of time building a great vacancy announcement. Other people are like, oh, we need to hire someone else in a project management. Great, let me just grab this file we did last time and roll it back out there. And then you'll start doing the research, and you'll find out, oh, they're looking for a project manager in healthcare. Well, I'm a project manager, with manufacturing, and you start saying, oh, these don't just automatically apply left or right. It's certain matches. So I can go out there and tell you I've worked as a project manager in the military, which is completely different than it is in the civilian terms. But I've done most of mine in maintenance management, logistics, and HR kind of roles. So all of a sudden someone says, hey, we want you to go out there and be like a bio science company. I'm not the project manager for bioscience. I'm not your engineer. I'm not going near IT. I worked in it, as communications, and I did the computer stuff for a while. I'll tell you, I'm well past my prime on that. And now I do what most people do, is I figure it out myself, or I call my IT buddy and start asking questions. But it's really that focus on figuring out your best way of learning, applying that to your research, to who you reach out to, what programs you reach out to, and you have to know yourself before you can really go out there and start asking for a lot of help. Some of us, we know what we know, and we're not willing to learn more. If you fall into that boat, you better know where you fit, what is it you really want to do, and then you can talk to people in that industry and look for different positions and research the topic, and that's all great. But if you're not willing to learn, you're going to have some trouble, because technology changes constantly. Just here in the last 45 days, as we've gone into this COVID-19 crisis, people were like, no, you can't work from home. Virtual remote work doesn't work. Well, what we're finding out is it really does for a lot of people. And so when we come out of this and we have new technology that was developed prior, during, and it's going to come after, we're going to have to adapt and learn those new technologies. There's some jobs that probably will never go back to a brick and mortar event. You're going to have a virtual or work from home, and that's going to be a change, and I do think we're going to recover. We're going to be America, which is always great, always, leading the way, but it's going to be our new normal. Uh, there, there's developments that are coming out of this that we will have to adapt, and business is always business in the way it's been done. Well, I'm someone who hates that. This is how we've always done it. So this is going to be a great opportunity to figure out how will we do it forward. And those are things that you've got to prepare for. You've got to make yourself the best candidate you can be. And again, mentorship, networking, going out there and getting certifications, degrees, all those things that bump you up. And again, it could be something as you went and did an online session where it a 2-hour webinar that talked about uh, the PHR, professional human resources. Well, it doesn't give you the certification, but it will definitely help you with the language. And if you can start speaking these different languages in these different organizations, these different fields, it's going to bump you up. It'll be in your resume. It'll be in your cover letter. It'll be in the conversations and the interview you have. And if you're not someone who's big on social media, and a lot of us, we've had this secret clearance or top secret, or we just that's a way, but it's going to make it a little harder for you to break through. But right now, it's a great time to take advantage of the different social media that's out there, and don't be afraid to just find a virtual networking event and join it.
And you,
it
you brought you brought up a great point, and one that I would like to talk about because I think it's going to be a huge conversation point for a lot of organizations is how do we transition into this virtual world permanently? Because they're kind of being forced to now, and now they can probably realize like, hey, this is actually a great opportunity for us to grow. What would you tell that leader that had that mindset of we've always done it like this, and we don't, and I don't think there's a need for change? What would you tell that person that's watching this and saying, you know what, I don't really like change, and this whole virtual thing doesn't sit well with me? What would you tell
it,
that person?
and what they're going to have to do is some are doing it right now. All the analysis of what's working, what's not working, and it's going to go back when things are all said and done. In order to have a X number of employees work, we have to have X number of square footage in this building. We have to provide them with the computers. We have to provide them with the phones. Just all the different things that go on uh, in a brick and mortar business. But now you come back out and your customer support, you know, they don't need to be, in an actual building. They can do the things, from home, and they still have access to the company's network. So they have all the resources they can to send tickets where they need to be, to answer questions, to look up research things. So do I really need to have an entire floor, uh, with 25, 50, 100 people doing that all right there, and I'm paying for the electricity, the air conditioning going on, the heater, uh, the cleaning service. And you start doing all these things, and you start factoring down of what kind of money can you save if you're no longer in the brick and mortar, but you're having people work from home. And one of the things with all that money you can save, you can actually give your virtual employees a raise and still make extra money, by splitting the difference. So I can get more higher quality of employees. I'm going to have more employees that are happy because they don't have to deal with the commute. And I don't know about anybody else, but I was in Southern California, and if 35, 40 miles, you know, it'd take an hour and a half, 2 hours, and that's going and coming back. If I don't have to deal with that, I'm much happier, and I'll probably put in a couple of extra hours of work because it's part of that. I schedule that time for commute, so I'm up. I'm used to doing this, and it just becomes something a little bit different. And there's a lot of research out there that says those that work from home are more productive, that they actually work, a little bit earlier than they're required to. And again, it's fine if they're salaried. If they're hourly, and we got some questions we have to do with logging in and logging out to show the hours worked. But it shows that possibility. And again, we have a lot of account managers that are on the road a lot. We have the traveling team. Well, instead of them having to come back to an office and deal with paperwork and filing all that, they can do that from home. It saves them. Now, we're always going to need a space where we can say, yes, this is where we hang our title, this is where our core business is. And you're going to have those essential people that we're going to have them in a brick and mortar site, but it might be 100, 200 vice 1,000. So those things are coming back in. And again, it's all about the cost analysis. What is the the organization? Is it a product, a service, manufacturing? I'm sorry, you're not manufacturing from your house. Yeah. It.
Wait, you tell me I can't have a manufacturing line in my house, Bruce? I mean,
Hey,
man,
I
I would
I
love
give
to
it to you.
have that. I would
Okay,
love to have
start the garage.
build my car right from my garage, right?
Hey, feel free. It's going to cost you a little bit more for that specialized treatment and have everybody come to your house and start building things. And there's plenty of stay-at-home, work from home businesses that you can do that small manufacturing. But when we start talking about, let's just be honest, the N95 masks, we're not going to be mass producing those from the house. We are, a lot of people are building those masks, and I love the creativity that you see. But the idea to be able to produce, 1,000, it's just not really realistic. You get some of these groups, they're getting together and they're showing, and I've seen some great ones. I've seen some Toy Story, some Star Wars, and I'm like, that's the kind of mask I want. And it's just it's great and it's nice to see, but there's just some things that aren't realistic for remote work, virtual work, and those are the things that the decision makers are going to have to figure out. Are they going to commit? Are they kind of stuck in the, no, this is how we've always done it, so we're not going to change? And there's people out there that's just how it is. This is what we do. It's a proven blueprint. It works. We're not changing it. And I'm not going to argue if someone's got a company that's been around for 100 years and they're still making that profit and they're doing everything the way that their predecessor and the predecessor's predecessors did. But there's a chance right now for a lot of small, medium-sized businesses to make a good leap into reducing their cost, but offering a better employee experience. And again, when you call a phone number, you don't know if you're calling into a brick and mortar building or a virtual, and no one cares. All we care about is when we call, we can get our customer service complaint taken care of. We can get the update on our order. We can get something fixed. That's what we care about. We can get the assistance that we're calling for.
And
So
I think that's a great point, because as leaders, we should be able to adapt. We should be able, and we should actually want to adapt. We should actually want to be looking at ways to improve our organizations. And this can be a way to improve it because, like you mentioned earlier, you might find your people are happier being at home versus being in an office because of that commute time or because of that extra time they have to spend at the office to take care of paperwork that they could easily do from their home versus at their desk. So I think that's a great and obviously I'm very passionate about it because I'm a remote worker myself. So for me, I don't I don't see a need for an office. I don't want to have an office. I want to be able to sit down at my desk at my house, do my job, turn my computer off at the end of the day, and go spend time with my family. Now, is that realistic for every organization? You're right, it isn't. But you know what? If your organization is actually thriving in this environment, I think you need to take a hard look as a leader and say, let's keep this thing going. Let's make this, a realistic opportunity for my team. And and also as a leader, we need to also look at how are we being effective during this time. And I've thought a lot about this, and to be effective during this time period of so much uncertainty, you need to communicate. I think that's a huge missed opportunity for a lot of leaders. Is we don't communicate very well. We get so used to the grind of work and getting our teams to do certain tasks or to do certain projects for us. We forget to communicate, and now in today's environment where we're not seeing each other on a daily basis, we kind of we're kind of forced back into that. Hey, I have to call in my team and make sure, like, hey, we know what's supposed to be done today, or hey, I need to check in with them and send them a message on, whatever messaging platform you use, whether it be Slack, Teams, Skype, you know, the list can go on. But how are you effectively communicating? And I think that's going to be a sign of a strong team is how many people stay with you after everything is said and done. Now, I want to hear what your thoughts are on that, Bruce.
So when people start talking about, we don't leave jobs, you know, because of the job, we leave job because of bad leadership. So that's one of those common things of communication is key. Whenever we go through, um, people want to really want to know what is the requirements, what does I need to get through, what is the priority, and let's go to work. And I'll tell you, I've I've worked remotely before where I had to manage, 13 remote sites in seven different states. There is no, I'm going to call you every single day. There is no, I'm going to send you 20 emails a day. It's you do a site visit when you can. So site visit this time would be a Zoom, a Teams, like you said, all the different platforms. Uh, and you can hold a team meeting. You can talk to those supervisors you have. It's one getting a message across of the priority is X for today or this week, you know, and what it really comes down to is trust. Leaders are going to have to really put the trust into their employees and know that if I give them the direction and I can communicate, special needs or anything that's different than a normal process would be, if I don't tell them, they're not going to produce what I need them to produce. So you've got to reach out. You've got to uh, communicate effectively with your teams. You have to empower your employees to do what they've been hired to do. I think one of those uh, great uh, quotes is hire the good people and get out of their way. We hire people that are way smarter than us that do things that we have no idea how they do it. But if we try to micromanage them or really direct every facet of their day, well, why do we hire that person if you're just going to tell them what to do every step of the way? So I think that's really going to leaders will be sought out. Companies will see who uh, their innovative leaders are, those that actually produced better during this time frame, and you'll see those that the team didn't live up to what they were doing because it just remotely it wasn't the communication that was there. So these are things that we're going to take into account uh, as we do the data analysis and see what happens afterwards. And again, I don't like this is how we've always done it, but that's just the reality, and we have to adapt. And if you're someone who's comes out of this and says we were able to do it remotely, virtually, and then you're like, no, I know it worked, but we're going to go back to what we are. You have to do a self-analysis of, is that where you want to be? Is that the company you want to work for?
Interesting perspective, and I think that's going to be
And
huge.
we have to do that for ourselves.
Yeah, no, and you're right. We do have to start looking at it. Once everything is said and done, is the organization I work with really the one that fits in my ideas or in my personal beliefs? So I think it will take a lot of perspective for those of us that are working inside the organization to, or working inside organizations that are now forced to go into a virtual environment that never has been, or maybe they have had the opportunity to be virtual, but they've never fully taken advantage of it. I think we're going to see a lot of movement in that space. But if excuse me, if you want to connect with Bruce and further this conversation, where would you, uh, where would people go to connect with you? Where would people go to further this conversation?
Well, on LinkedIn, you just have to look up Bruce Thompson, MBA, Mike Bravo Alpha. You'll come to my LinkedIn profile. I'm clean shaven. I'm in a suit. My chameleon. Again, my personal Facebook is more professional Facebook, where I share jobs and uh, employment, education, and different things of that nature. So those are ways you can get a hold of me. And of course, Bruce Thompson, MBA@gmail.com.
That's fantastic, and I love that people are willing to start getting out onto social media, because I think that's going to be how a lot of more information will start being shared instead of passed around in the traditional method. We're going to be relying on our Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn accounts to find that information we need now, because we're going to move into a more virtual world. And if I was a leader, I'd be looking at this opportunity to grow my skills. I'd be looking at this as an opportunity to really refocus myself on the mission of being a leader. And when the military community talks about being a leader, we talk about the people that we're taking care of. And for those of you civilian counterparts that don't really understand the military side, understand that the veteran community is very adept at handling stressful situations. We just are. That's kind of what we're trained to do. Don't shy away from us. Let's help you get through this time period. Let us show you that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, because so many people are screaming about how dark it is. Yes, it is dark. You're right. But we're going to help get to that light portion. And hopefully, crossing my fingers, it'll be relatively soon. But as we wrap this up, Bruce, what would be an inspiring message you would give to the community in general, the veteran and civilian community, about how we're going to get through this, and what will that light in the tunnel look like? No, if it's 3 months, 6 months, hell,
It,
even 18 months, what would that look like? What would that inspiring? What would you give that inspiring message to be?
so I tell you, look at right now. We've had these rough times. We've been in recessions. We've been, in a depression. We've been at wars. But if you look, as we come out, we always continue to grow. Yes, the stock markets, were down. Well, it was due for a little downturn, but I'll tell you, once we're back open, you know, all of us that lost money, and it's only lost money on paper from the stock market drops, it's going to go right back up, and it's going to hit a new all-time high. You know, just look at the trends for the last 100, 150 years. We always are growing. We have dips, and that's everybody has a bad quarter. Everybody's going to have that time, and it just has to get reset. Same thing with the employment market. Right now, there's so many people got laid off, but we were at a all-time low in unemployment. You know, that that was amazing. So when this is done, there are going to be so many new opportunities. There are going to be different opportunities that are available because the technology that's coming out of this crisis, it's you're going to have new industries show up, and they're going to be focused on what was depression or repression proof during this, 30, 60, 90, whatever length this COVID crisis is going to take us. Those industries are going to start seeing more people grow. You're going to come back out, and we're already talking about, your education sometimes becomes, not that important, because what a bachelor's degree used to be is watered down because there's so many people that have that. But vocational training, hands-on training, doing things with your hand, HVAC, plumbing, electricians, construction workers, all these, manual labor jobs that people, oh, I don't want to do those because, it takes physical effort. They're going to start popping up. We're still building during this, houses, buildings. We're still getting electrical. All these things are still needed. Heck, every day you go out there, there's solar panels or more cell towers that are getting put up. Technology is just going to grow. It's just like when we first got the internet, and it was that dial dial dial. Hey, you're connecting, and we all know the wonderful AOL sounds. But now no one would even think about going out there and doing a dial-up. Was it a 58K? That's anybody tried to do that one. We just be like, done. I don't care if it's free. I'm not using it. And those are the different things we have. And right now the movie theaters have closed. You can get movies on your TV now that instead of being in theater are be able to be purchased. Adapted that quick. We are going to come out of this. We are going to be recovering. Our economy is going to boom just like it was. It's the having to get through it. And I'll tell you a concern that I have, and a lot of my fellow military and veterans, is the mental health side of it. And that's a whole nother, 30, 45-minute conversation. But be as positive as you can be, make yourself as best candidate as you can be, and be ready. You don't wait, the stay-at-home orders are going to lift on, X date. Well, don't wait till X date to start doing resumes, to start looking at things. Right now, you can take advantage of all these different resources and nonprofits that are out there that we're going to look at your resume. We're going to look at your LinkedIn profile. We're going to look at your skill set and tell you, I don't know why you're looking in this industry. You aren't a match. You don't have the experience. So if you want to start all over again and come back in entry level and work your way up, hey, that's great. But understand that you can't just say, well, you know what? Trucking industry was doing great during this period of time. I'm going to be a truck driver tomorrow. Well, if you don't have a CDL and you have no idea the shifting patterns, the how wind or all those things that go into getting your CDL and being able to go out there and do the safe delivery, it's not the industry you should be jumping into. We have our strengths, we have our passions. You've got to make yourself a viable candidate in the field that you have that passion to be in. If you're not, well, it's still a passion, but that's not going to get you that career. Maybe get a job for a little bit before people kind of figure out, hey, it's not the right person. But we're not after jobs. Jobs are, we got to pay the bills. We do them for a short period of time while we're looking for that something better. Right now, look for that something better. We want to put people in meaningful careers where they're happy, they're on a growth movement. It's long term. And you said a job. We've all had to take a job just to get some money on the table. But the goal is meaningful employment and careers. Better educate yourself now. Better prepare. The world has possibilities beyond possibilities, and we're coming out this strong. Fully believe in America and just the spirit that Americans have, and the American dream isn't lost. People just lost focus on what that really was, what it looked like, and the American dream for me, probably isn't the same it is for Bryan. Probably the same it isn't for a ton of other people, because everybody is different, and we have to take advantage of that. And most importantly, we can't look at everything negatively. We've got to put a positive view on it. And trust me, there's certain days where you just woe is me and it's not going. Those will pass. Get out there, call mom and dad, call your brothers, call your aunts, call your friends. Hey, put everybody on a virtual call and have like a mini family reunion. You know, and maybe be entertaining for those y'all who have those weird families. Maybe be boring for some of y'all that always talk, but it's something different. And call it that crazy friend that will make you smile and brighten your day. You know, it it's just the things that we have to do that are new and different, but it's what uh, today is about. It's changing. It's doing something new and different. Uh, it it's going to be interesting as we transition from what it was to the lockdown to what it's going to be when we get out from under this crisis. And
Absolutely.
you got to be
Well
ready
said.
in innovation. And again, Bryan does quite a few of these different events with different topics. Uh, Check them out. And he probably has links to a few other people that do similar work. Um, you figure out which one works for you and stick to it.
No, thank you so much for that plug, Bruce. And you're right. Ladies and gentlemen that are watching this, and take some advice that we're giving you to heart, because it's not that we're trying to tell you that we have all the answers, because we don't.
Oh,
The thing is we have experience, and that's the other thing about a veteran. We have experiences that we can share, and we're happy to share with you. And you're right, Bruce. We're going to come through this crisis. We're going to get through this, and we're going to come out better, hopefully, on the end. What that better looks like, nobody really knows. But at the end of the day, we're growing, we're innovating through this. So take the innovations as a good thing. Don't take them as a bad thing, ladies and gentlemen. And those that are watching this, we're going to be looking at things way differently than we ever have before, and it's not a bad thing. It is absolutely not a bad thing. Bruce, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for coming on the show with us. I look forward to further conversations with you, and I hope our guests reach out to you and have that conversation, because there's a lot of insights that can be gained from having that conversation. And you're right. Whether you have one or 50, that conversation can be impactful for you. So, keep those conversations going. Those who are watching this, let's try to change the world. That's what this is about, is changing your perspective and changing your world. So, my name is Bryan Shue, and thank you, Bruce Thompson, for coming on today. I appreciate you. I know you've been a huge advocate on my behalf for me, so I thank you for that. And again, so much information is being shared here. Take advantage of it, ladies and gentlemen, and enjoy it. So, and also, FYI, another episode will be coming out soon. So get on our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, and
mhm.
let's make this a great experience for everybody. This lockdown doesn't have to be bad. It can be great. Join us again for another episode of Lockdown with Thought Leaders. Thank you so much, Bruce. We'll chat with you soon. Bye.
Bye.